Morning, everyone. Welcome back to this Facebook Live. Very excited for this one, and with me again for the first live that we're doing in 2019, we've got Ross Buchner, the General Manager at TTI. Thanks for joining us, mate.
Thank you, Anthony. Appreciate the opportunity to join this exciting discussion.
Always,
Let's get
mate.
it underway.
We always enjoy a good chat. So very keen for this one. We're going to discuss today, as the caption mentions, how to value add through smart packaging. And just before we do dive into that, mate, can you give us a bit of a snapshot for those that don't know what you do there at TTI?
Sure. So my name's Ross Buchner. I'm the General Manager at TTI here. We manufacture liquid transport tanks and for a variety of applications, but packaging is something that we're passionate about, and we have to do a lot of it because a lot of our products are displayed in the retail space. That's why I'm excited to join this discussion today.
Beautiful, mate. And full disclosure for everybody looking, TTI is a customer of Gateway. We've got a great relationship together. So let's get straight into the conversation. Mate, the topic is how to value add through smart packaging. So what are your initial thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I just think that there's so much opportunity to add perceived value into a product through giving a little bit of thought to the packaging. I know we've touched on this in some of the previous broadcasts, but I think honing in specifically on adding value through smart packaging is an interesting topic, because the term smart is gaining momentum in the world as we know it today. It has a lot of different meanings, but if those of us and those listening to this discussion can just start to think about packaging early on in the chain. So if you're designing a new product, think about packaging early on, because it's like giving something a coat of paint. You know, the perceived value of the finished thing could be 5 times the value of what it cost you to paint it in the first place. So it's disproportionate, and I think the same is true with smart packaging. You can disproportionately increase the value of the product through cleverly packaging it. I don't know. What do you think, Anthony?
Totally agree. And even that analogy there is a good one with painting. If you're talking about a house, even the value that you would, and this perceived value is a big thing too. But if you walked into your newly built house and the painting was very poor quality, there was only 2 coats compared to really high quality, perfectly finished. It just makes everything feel a lot more valuable, feels more expensive, and that's just right across the board with packaging, like you mentioned. So, what about smart packaging, mate? What does the term smart mean for you? Is it smart as in thinking smart, or is it smart more technology based?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've just been doing some research recently on that particular point, and there's some interesting technology that is coming out which does truly turn packaging into smart packaging. But in the context of this discussion, I think for those of us who are business owners and managers in business, smart to me more means thinking about how your packaging is perceived by the end user, and really looking at it from 2 angles. If you're selling in the retail world, well, you're relying on impulse buys, you're relying on visual attraction to your product, and the degree of how well you do that can take the focus away from what's behind the packaging, which is the product. And we all think we've got the best product. Every manufacturer, every supplier thinks their product's the best. But the reality is, in a retail space, you're walking down the likes of Bunnings, and whoever's done their homework and thought smartly about their presentation amongst a host of other options is the one who'll often capture the impulse buys. So I think you've got the retail space, which is visual attraction, and then you've got the I guess you could say the wholesale business to business type goods, which is more about ensuring they arrive in the state that they left you. You can't blame a carrier for something that's damaged. That's a poor excuse in my eyes for a damaged product. We all know carriers don't treat products with due diligence. So take the ownership, accept responsibility, and be smart about the packaging that it goes in. And
love that.
it takes the heat out of the conversation. What do you think?
Yeah, no, completely agree. Completely agree. If you've obviously got to creating products or sourcing products, that you value and that that your customer values, and if you can put a packaging system around that to protect it from manufacture, from warehouse to the customer, like you said, you really do need to take ownership on that. So, completely agree, mate. And I think maybe even just touching back on perceived value for people that may not exactly understand what that means. Whenever we look at something, right, as human beings, we are very good at telling if something is expensive or not expensive. Just a general rule of thumb. And a really good example of this is with Apple, and obviously their packaging, which everybody knows is really high quality. But even down to, and this is an article I was reading the other day, even down to their traditional advertising, like their billboard advertising, right? Whenever you see an Apple advertisement, it's not going to be plastered on the back of a taxi or in the newspaper as such. You're going to see it like on the most expensive billboards in the cities, really prominent, high traffic. It's cost them thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars a month, but it's always in a location that looks and has the perception that advertising costs a lot, because that's the association that they want with their brand. They want Apple products, to be perceived as expensive, as top end, as really high quality. And if they go around finding the cheapest places to advertise that product, then that perceived value is diminished because of that. So I think that was a pretty cool article to read.
Yeah, that's good, and that really brings up the whole topic about aligning your packaging with your whole, the way you want your brand to be perceived. So if you're trying to pitch your product at a certain market or a certain level, make sure your packaging aligns with that. Yep. Because that is often the first impression. And we talk about an Apple phone, and this happens a lot in technology, but often the actual product itself is probably a third of the size of the packaging that it arrives in. And
yes,
it's I'm just trying to think of a way to explain it, but everyone's looking for bang for their buck. So if you're going to go out and spend, we'll bring it right down to something like $20. If your product is only yay big, then think about maybe making the packaging that it is hanging on the shelf with twice the size, and if against your competitor, the customer feels like they're getting more value in buying your product.
Yep. Exactly.
Do you agree with that?
100%. And you've also, you're taking up more of their view, right? So
exactly.
Like I said, if it's a small product sitting on a shelf, you double the packaging next to it, it's going to capture more attention because it's taking up more of the person's view. So there's many pros to taking that approach with your packaging.
Good, and we know we're living in a very environmentally conscious world, so just make it something that people can easily dispose of, if possible. And that's the convenience side of packaging, is that we've had this discussion a number of times here, because we have big bulky tanks and we wrap them in plastic. Well, is there ways we can become more smart about the type of material we use to wrap our tanks in, so that it's easier for our customers to dispose of that? Because it's expensive to dispose of packaging. So this is the elements that come into smart packaging that are not necessarily technology related.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the way the world is going, new production methods, new products that we can use in packaging, even down to the packaging itself. We've used that example many times of Apple and the quality of their packaging materials. But even when it comes down to things like getting logos printed on, for example, the wrap that you guys use for the tanks, you've got the TTI logo on that wrap now. So again, that increases the perceived value because you've got the logo on your product. It's not just some clear wrap that could come from anywhere. But I mean, that's an affordable way for you guys to increase the value of your packaging, increase some marketing as well. So there's many factors, and I think it's getting much more affordable for brands, whereas in the past it was kind of a nice to have or something that was too expensive.
Yes, no, that's so true, and that's why I'd encourage everyone to have this discussion with their packaging supplier, and hopefully that becomes Gateway. But just to say, well, this is the scope of my packaging requirements. What opportunities do we have to be smarter with it? Because in manufacturing, we're not experts on packaging. We rely on the likes of yourself, Anthony, and the team at Gateway to advise us on what is the best method to package something, and what is the latest and greatest in the packaging space.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
don't be shy to ask is the bottom line.
That's exactly right. And there are so many different ways out there to enhance your packaging. Like it really is. Talk to your supplier, do a bit of research, find something that is affordable for your business, because at the end of the day, experience is so much, it's such a big part of what we enjoy about purchasing a product. And even if we're talking about in the business sense, a product that's arriving or being bought by someone that's in a plain brown cardboard carton, for example, is going to have less perceived value and not be as exciting, not be as good an experience as something that is being unboxed, I suppose. That's really nicely designed and it's got the logo and looks good. Because even with YouTube and unboxing, the whole unboxing video craze is massive. And a massive part of that is the fact that oftentimes the packaging is so good. If our Apple products arrived in a plain brown cardboard carton, the unboxing video wouldn't be as exciting as what it is as it is today. So the customer's experience as well.
Yeah, that's good. And I think summarizing everything we're saying is that don't miss the opportunity to capitalize on some small changes that could set you apart in such a huge way from your opposition with smart packaging. There's so much opportunity to add value through just a little bit of thinking early on in the piece, so that you complement your product and you add value to it.
Perfect. Love it, mate. Do you think that wraps up the topic for today?
Yeah, I think so. Be glad to hear if anyone's got any questions after this. I'm sure between us we could try and come up with some answers. Anthony, what do you think?
Definitely, 100%. As Ross has said, guys, please do leave any comments that you might have, any questions that you've got in the comments below. Even sharing some screenshots of the types of packaging that you've got and that you've put together. Maybe you have put a lot of thought into this before and you really have taken your packaging to the next level, trying to create that experience for your customer. And we'd love to see some examples of that in the comments below as well. So, Ross, thanks for your time, mate. Really appreciate it, and hope you and the team at TTI have a really big 2019.
Speak soon. Thanks, Anthony.
Thanks, mate.